A few months ago, I found myself driving through a forgotten town. Old homes lined the streets, all abandoned and worn down. I was looking for stories to tell. As a freelance journalist, I always sought inspiration in the most unusual places. This town, with its cracked sidewalks and vines creeping up walls, seemed perfect. I had heard rumors about strange happenings, but I didn't pay much attention to them. The first house I entered felt cold. The door creaked open, and I stepped inside. I walked into what appeared to be a children's room. On the floor, a faded drawing caught my eye. It showed kids playing hide and seek. I thought it was sweet, an innocent memory of happier times. But as I turned to leave, I felt something brush against me, a fleeting chill. I shook it off and went deeper into the house, but my heart raced. As I explored more homes, my unease grew. One night I heard whispers. They echoed through the empty rooms like they were calling to me. I stopped to look around but found no one. I told myself it was just the wind, but my skin prickled. I felt like unseen eyes were watching me, and my heart pounded again. The following week, I returned to a different house. I stepped inside, feeling the weight of silence. The kitchen was full of shadows. Then, amidst the stillness, I heard faint laughter, like a child playing nearby. My blood ran cold. I told myself there couldn't be any children here, but the laughter grew louder. I backed away slowly, trying to convince myself it was nothing. I turned to look back, but the room was empty. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Each visit left me more rattled than before. One day, while standing in a long hallway, I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around, but there was nothing. I was drenched in cold sweat, gripping my camera tightly. I told myself I wasn't losing my mind. There had to be a reason for this. My last visit was different. I stood in the living room, heart racing, sensing something I couldn't see. I whispered, "Is anyone there?" Silence answered me. Then, I heard the laughter again, right behind me. I didn't want to turn around. I just ran. I bolted for the door, gasping for air. I didn't stop until I reached my car, leaning against it, trying to calm down. Now, as I sit here reflecting on all of it, I can't help but wonder. Maybe there is something more lingering in those homes. I don't know if it's real or just my imagination. But that laughter? It still haunts me. I feel like a shadow follows me, something that wants to play just one more game of hide and seek. The next morning, I woke up restless. I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to go back to that town. Curiosity gnawed at me. I needed answers. Gathering my things, I decided to return. It was like an obsession I couldn't resist. As I drove, the townspeople looked at me oddly, but I ignored them. They knew something. I just needed to figure out what it was. I parked near the last house I visited. It loomed ahead, the paint peeling like it wanted to shed its past. My heart pounded as I approached the front door. The door creaked open with reluctance. I stepped inside and felt the familiar cold air wash over me. Everything seemed the same, yet different. The shadows danced in the corners, waiting. I called out into the silence. "I'm back." My voice echoed back, but there was no answer. While exploring the living room, I noticed a corner covered in dust. There was a small bookshelf filled with books, their spines cracked and faded. I took one and leafed through it. It was a diary, filled with the young scrawl of a child. The entries were about games played, friends, and hiding spots. But then the tone shifted. The last entries spoke of fear, of someone who didn't belong. My skin crawled. Suddenly, a crash came from upstairs. I froze, heart racing. The sound was loud and unmistakable. Was someone else here? I felt a mix of dread and urgency. With every step I took toward the staircase, echoes of laughter danced at the edge of my mind. I paused, half turning to leave, but something drove me onward. I climbed the creaky stairs, each step making me feel like I was walking deeper into a trap. When I reached the hallway, I noticed one of the doors slightly ajar. Holding my breath, I pushed it open. The room was dark, and as I crossed the threshold, the laughter returned, filling the air like a thick fog. That's when I saw a shadow flitting across the room. I squinted, trying to make sense of it, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Panic surged within me, knotting my stomach. I stumbled back, hitting my foot against a pile of rubble. Then everything went silent. A chill settled in the air, suffocating. I turned to leave the room, but the door slammed shut behind me. Fear coursed through my veins. I pounded on the door, my voice trembling. "Let me out." As I banged, I felt an icy breeze swirling around me, lifting the hair on my arms. Then, without warning, a whisper echoed in the silence, clear and sharp. "Come play with us." I stilled. This wasn't imagination. Whatever was in this house wanted more. I needed to escape. Summoning every ounce of courage, I turned back to the door, ready to break it down. But as I pushed against it, a cold hand gripped my shoulder from behind. I spun around, ready to confront whatever this was, but the room was empty. Empty, except for the shadows and the unsettling laughter that echoed, growing louder. The fear that had been creeping up my spine now surged like wildfire. Then I heard it again, closer this time. "You're not leaving yet." My breath caught. I wasn't alone. The moment the words hit my ears, I felt an electric jolt of panic shoot through me. I turned slowly, trying to make sense of the empty room around me. My heart raced, the shadows seemed to shift, hungry for movement, alive in their stillness. That voice, it felt familiar and strange all at once. "Who's there?" I stammered, trying to keep my voice steady. No response came, but the laughter was back, echoing from all corners. It was joined by a soft thud, like footsteps, moving across the floorboards outside the door. My pulse quickened. I pressed my back against the cold wall, blinking rapidly. I needed to stay calm. I needed to think. There was still a way out. But I had to know what was happening first. With my breath hitching in my throat, I moved toward the door, desperate to break free. I grasped the handle and yanked it, but it didn't budge. Panic twisted in my gut. I kicked the door, then pounded my fists against it. "Let me out!" I shouted, my voice shaky. The laughter crescendoed, wrapping around me like a sinister blanket. Suddenly, without warning, the door flew open. I stumbled into the hallway, nearly falling over my own feet. I looked left and right, heart hammering. The air felt thick, heavy with something I couldn't name. I needed to get out, but the hallway stretched endlessly before me, filled with silent doors that loomed like dark secrets. A flicker of movement caught my eye, and I turned. At the end of the hall stood a figure small and childlike, just beyond the reach of light. Dressed in a faded yellow dress, it looked like a ghost of a child from that diary. My instincts screamed for me to run, but I was frozen in place, captivated by curiosity and dread. "Come play," the child said, tilting its head as if inviting me. The laughter rose again, echoing in my ears. I shook my head, heart hammering in protest. "I don't want to play," I choked out. But the child took a step forward, and another. The shadows around us distorted, giving life to the whispers that flooded my mind. The closer it came, the more I could feel the temperature drop. I felt a coldness creeping up my legs, rooting me in place. "Please," I breathed, backing away until I hit the wall. The child stopped abruptly, falling silent, eyes wide and empty. Then it pointed behind me. I turned swiftly, dread pooling in my stomach. The laughter changed. It morphed into something darker, more sinister. It felt like it was wrapping around my throat, squeezing. I whipped back to the child. "What do you want?" I yelled, desperation leaking into my voice. In response, the child dissolved into shadows before my eyes. One moment it was there, and the next, it vanished. All that remained was a thick silence and the feeling that I was being watched. And then I got the unmistakable chill of fingers brushing along my neck. Spinning around, I faced the darkness again, realizing I hadn't escaped after all. It wasn't just the child that wanted to play. The shadows, the laughter, they were all part of something much bigger. I needed to find a way out. But as I turned, the hallway twisted, shifting the exit farther away. A voice whispered again, closer this time. "It's your turn to hide." My heart sank. This was a game I knew I couldn't win. As the echo of those words faded, the shadows thickened around me. I felt their grip tightening, as if they were forming a barrier, sealing me in. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to move despite the unease clawing at my insides. I had to break the cycle. The hallway twisted ahead, but I focused on the end. I began to walk, each step deliberate, as I could hear the whispers rising and falling like a tide. They pulsed in my ears, a cacophony of secrets begging to be heard, but all I could think about was escape. Just as I reached the next corner, a door suddenly swung open to my left. I jerked back, heart racing. A figure appeared, shrouded in darkness. It was an adult, their face obscured in shadow. I could only catch a glimpse of a smile that sent a fresh wave of dread through me. "Come closer," the figure beckoned, voice smooth but laced with something sharp. "We want to play, too." I hesitated, looking for a way to retreat. Instead, I stumbled forward, compelled by some unseen force. I was trapped between the pull of curiosity and the weight of my fear. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice a small, hoarse tremor. "Why, to find you, dear," the figure replied, taking a step closer. I could feel the chill emanating from them. "It's only a game, after all." Then, without warning, they darted into the shadows behind the door, vanishing as quickly as they appeared. I stood frozen. I could hear whispers growing louder, swirling around like a kaleidoscope of voices. "Run or hide." They chanted, echoing the innocent charm of the child's earlier invitation, now twisted into something sinister. I had already seen where the game led. Choosing to stay would mean surrendering to whatever darkness lay waiting. But running seemed futile. No matter which direction I chose, the shadows shifted with me, stretching the hall and making it feel like a labyrinth of despair. I took off down the hallway, pushing past doors that seemed ready to swing wide open and swallow me whole. At the end, I saw a flicker of light. My heart surged, it had to be an exit. As I ran, I heard laughter again, this time stronger, mocking me. I reached the light, bursting through another door, and found myself in a small, dimly lit room. The windows were boarded up, and the air was stale. Papers littered the floor, old and yellowed. I glanced around, searching for anything that could help me escape. That's when I saw it. A diary, similar to the one I had read before, lay open on a dusty table. I approached cautiously, the words on the page appearing to shift before my eyes. It felt important, like it held answers to the questions that plagued me. But as I leaned in, the pages fluttered violently, and I heard that haunting voice whispering again. "Seek, and you will find." A chill shot down my spine. I understood I wasn't just being pulled into a game, I was part of something much darker. The laughter crescendoed again, echoing through the room, as shadows gathered in the corners, forming shapes that seemed to leer at me. I had to make a choice. Delve into the diary for answers, or face whatever was closing in around me. A new wave of dread washed over me, heavier than before. Then everything went dark. I blinked, and the darkness enveloped me completely. For a moment, I felt weightless, as if I had been pulled into another realm. Then, with a sudden gasp, light rushed back into focus. I was no longer in the small room. I stood in a vast, open space, the floor beneath my feet cold and hard like stone. A pale, flickering light illuminated the perimeter of the room. The air buzzed with static, making my skin prickle. Shadows lurked just beyond the reach of light, teasing me with shapes that danced and swirled with an unsettling rhythm. A low hum of whispers washed over me, their words indistinct but urgent. I felt their pull, urging me to listen closer. What is this place? I muttered to myself, scanning the walls. They were lined with framed pictures, but as I stepped closer, I noticed they were blank. Instead, the glass panes reflected a distorted version of my own frightened face. Why can't I wake up? Suddenly, the shadows shifted, and I noticed a series of doors along one wall. Each one was unique, some ornate and grand, others simple and worn down. Before I could decide which one to approach, a chilling laugh erupted from the darkness, freezing me in place. It was the same laughter I had heard before, filled with hollow joy. Choose wisely. A voice echoed, dripping with malice. Not all doors lead to freedom. Panic surged through me. I didn't want to play this game. I wanted to leave, yet I was rooted to the spot. A door at the far end of the room began to creak open slowly, its hinges groaning like an ancient beast awakening. A dim light spilled forth, revealing the shadow of what seemed to be a staircase spiraling down into the unknown. Help! I shouted, but the word echoed back to me like a cruel taunt. The other doors began to vibrate, their surfaces flickering like flames. I knew that whatever was waiting beyond them was no better than the staircase. I forced myself to take a step toward the staircase, driven by desperation. That's when I heard it, a soft thud behind me. I turned around to see one of the doors had fully swung open. A figure emerged. It was cloaked, their face still hidden, but I could feel their presence pressing against me as if testing my resolve. Are you lost? They asked, voice smooth and inviting. We have been waiting for you. Fear coursed through me, and I took a step back. What do you want? I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. To play, they said, a sinister smile forming beneath the hood. The shadows swirled faster, and the whispers grew frantic. You must decide now. What will it be? The stairs or the mystery behind the door? I knew I couldn't stay in limbo. But before I could think rationally, the air shifted. The whispers crescendoed as they chanted, choose. Choose. The pressure in the room became unbearable, making it hard to breathe, and I found my instincts kicking in. Enough! I shouted, my voice breaking through the chaos. And then there was silence. It was absolute, hanging in the air like a thick fog. My heart raced as I realized I hadn't achieved anything. The figure hadn't moved, their eyes locked on me with an intensity that sent chills down my spine. Then, just as quickly as the silence came, it shattered. The figure lunged forward, and instinctively, I turned to the staircase. I ran, fueled by adrenaline, but just before I reached the first step, I felt a hand grasp my shoulder. Game on, the figure hissed in my ear. As I stumbled forward, the world around me went dark once again, but this time I could feel the pull of the shadows, urging me deeper into their realm. I landed hard on the cold, stone floor, my breath rushing from my lungs in a chaotic gasp. The oppressive shadows danced around me, but I forced myself to my feet. I had to keep moving. Panic clawed at my throat as I spun around, scanning for any sign of the cloaked figure or an escape route. The shadows were everywhere. They pulsed like living beings, whispering secrets and taunting me, but I couldn't make out their words. I had to push through the murky air, away from whatever game they wanted to play. Each doorway loomed like a mouth ready to swallow me whole, but I had no choice but to pick one. Stumbling, I made my way to the nearest door. Its surface was smooth, cool to the touch. I hesitated just a moment, but the whispers grew louder, urging me on. "It's safe," they hissed. "Open it." With trembling fingers, I turned the handle. The door swung open with a low creak, revealing a dimly lit corridor bathed in an eerie glow. It felt like a lifeline in a storm. I stepped inside, feeling a strange warmth behind me as the door clicked shut. I moved cautiously down the hallway, my footsteps echoing unnaturally against the walls. The air was thick, and I felt eyes watching from the shadows. My stomach knotted with dread. I couldn't shake the feeling that the cloaked figure was right behind me. Suddenly, I heard a faint rustling followed by a soft thump, like something or someone was in the room ahead. My heart raced. I pressed against the wall, straining to listen. There it was again, a whispering voice, almost familiar. "Come closer." Against my better judgment, I took a step forward, curiosity pulling me despite my fear. My heart pounded in my chest as I saw a flicker of movement at the end of the corridor. It almost looked like a child's silhouette, small and fragile. I hesitated, caught between dread and an inexplicable urge to investigate. "Are you lost, too?" The voice chimed, sweet but edged with a sinister undertone. A shiver ran down my spine. I stepped back, but the figure took a step closer, revealing a disheveled face framed by matted hair. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light. "Not lost, just waiting," it purred, extending its small hand toward me. "Come play with us." I recoiled. There was something wrong, something so off about this child. I turned to run, but a wave of invisible force slammed into me. I stumbled, falling back against the wall. I looked back, and the child was gone, swallowed by the darkness, leaving only echoes of laughter lingering in the air. I scrambled to regain my footing, adrenaline surging through me as I fought against the suffocating fear. I couldn't stay here. I needed to find the exit. That's when I noticed a glint of metal beneath a pile of dust and debris. Curiosity overtook me and I dragged it free. A rusted key, covered in tarnish, lay in the palm of my hand. It felt heavy with possibilities, yet my instincts screamed to drop it. Suddenly, the whispers returned, a cacophony of voices urging me to look again. "It can help you," they chanted. Before I could make sense of it, a chilling breeze rushed past, followed by the distinct sound of footfalls behind me. I turned to see the figure in the cloak emerging from the shadows, a menacing grin spreading across their face. "Did you find what you were looking for?" they taunted. My heart plunged. The pressure was building again, leaving me with only one thought: I had to act. Every instinct screamed to run, but the corridor stretched endlessly, and the darkness was closing in fast. I darted forward, the key clutched tightly in my hand, my heart pounding as I searched for a door, a way out. I could hear them whispering my name now, a blend of encouragement and mockery. "Choose," they urged. With renewed determination, I sprinted, just as the shadows lunged forward. The chase was far from over. I raced down the corridor, the echoes of my footsteps mingling with the whispers. The shadows stretched and morphed, bending around me like claws reaching for my sanity. I couldn't lose focus. The rusted key weighed heavy in my pocket, reminding me that it could mean my salvation or my doom. My eyes darted back and forth. The walls seemed to close in, every doorway a potential trap. I spotted a door ahead, slightly ajar, with a flickering light spilling out into the hall. My instinct screamed at me to go there. I reached for the handle, my fingers shaking. Just as I was about to push the door open, it swung wide with a crash, slamming against the wall. I recoiled, heart racing, but the silhouette of the cloaked figure stood there, blocking my way. "You're running out of time," they hissed. I twisted away, desperate not to look back. The shadows behind me shifted, oozing along the floor like a dark entity trying to swallow my fears whole. I spotted a smaller door next to the one blocking my escape. Without thinking, I lunged toward it. Where are you going? The figure cackled. The laughter echoed through the corridor, ringing in my ears. I yanked the smaller door open, praying it would lead to safety. Inside was a small room, cluttered with forgotten things, broken furniture, dust-covered toys, and walls painted with peeling children's murals. The dim light flickered above me, casting erratic shadows. As I stepped inside, I hesitated, scanning for anything that might help. That's when I saw it. A flickering candle sat above a small table, surrounded by tiny chairs. Beside it, an old, tattered notebook lay open, pages fluttering as if something had just been written. Against every warning in my head, I walked over and peered down at the notebook. "Come play," it read in shaky handwriting. My blood ran cold. I could feel the hairs on my arms stand on end like they'd just caught fire. I skimmed through the pages, each entry more disturbing than the last accounts of children who had vanished within these walls, their laughter turning to screams. Suddenly, a sharp bang echoed from the hallway, followed by the sound of a door slamming shut. My breath caught in my throat. I turned, adrenaline surging, but before I could react, I felt cold fingers, barely brushing against my shoulder. "Play with us," the voice of the child returned, now closer. I whirled around, and for a moment, the room spun as confusion clawed at my mind. There was no one there. I couldn't linger, not after what I'd just read. With the key still heavy in my pocket, I rushed back toward the hallway, my heart pounding like a drum. Just as I stepped outside, the cloaked figure loomed ahead, muscles coiled like a predator. "You think this is a game?" they taunted, voice dipping into a whisper. "But it's only just begun." I stood frozen. The shadows behind me twisted and lunged, tightening their grip. Panic surged through me again, stalling my breath. I glanced around, desperate for another escape route. That's when I noticed a small window above, covered in grime but slightly ajar. I had to climb. I had to get out before whatever darkness lingered inside consumed me whole. But I could already hear the soft laughter returning, closing in. Time was slipping away. I reached for the window, adrenaline pushing me forward. My fingers brushed against the grime-laden wood frame, slipping slightly as the shadows hissed behind me. I didn't have time to hesitate. I hoisted myself upward, clawing at the sill. The laughter echoed again, now mingling with distant cries that sent shivers down my spine. I wedged my body through the window, feeling the rusted edges bite into my skin. I barely made it through when I heard the figure behind me roar in frustration. I hit the ground hard, landing in a heap on the overgrown grass of the yard outside. The air felt cold and alive around me, suffocating in a different way. I could still hear the whispers, but now they were behind closed doors, fading into the walls. I scrambled to my feet, scanning the area. The house loomed ominously, its chipped paint and broken windows staring back at me like empty eyes. I took a few deep breaths. I had escaped, but I wasn't safe yet. The rusted key felt heavier now, like it held secrets that threatened to surface. Just then, a small movement in the corner of my eye caught my attention. I turned abruptly and squinted through the haze of dusk. A child stood at the edge of the trees, face shrouded in shadows. My heart raced as he tilted his head. "Do you want to play?" he asked, voice eerily sweet. I took a step back. "No, I need to leave," I called out, my tone shaky. The child smiled wide, revealing a gap where his front teeth had been. "You can't leave." "Not yet." The laughter grew as if the forest itself was watching. I felt the panic return, wrapping around me tighter. "Go away," I shouted, but the child took a step forward, and suddenly, the laughter from the house echoed around me like a clap of thunder. Fear surged through me like electricity, and I turned my back to him, sprinting toward the gate at the end of the overgrown path. I pushed through the brush, branches snagging at my clothes. I had to get away. But the gate was locked. I fumbled with the latch, heart pounding in my throat. The silence behind me deepened, and I felt the eerily serene eyes of the boy watching my every move. "Play the game, Lily," he sang, a sing-song tone that grated on my nerves. I turned, panic flooding me as I caught a glimpse of shadows spilling out from the house's doorway. They swirled and wriggled like living creatures, bending as they moved. I fumbled in my pocket for the key. It was now or never. If I didn't find a way through, I didn't know what would happen next. Then I saw it, a rusty lock on the side of the gate, just out of view. I dropped to my knees, fumbling with the key. Every breath felt like a weight dragging me down. I slid the key into the lock, and it turned with a satisfying click, shattering the silence. As the gate swung open, the boy's laughter pierced the night air, taunting me. I stumbled through and into the street, but as I turned to escape, I realized something. In the distance, the house faded, but the laughter didn't stop. The shadows didn't stay behind. Something was still watching me from the depths of the night, and I sensed that the games had only just begun. I raced down the street, heart pounding in my chest. The laughter echoed, but I refused to look back. I pressed forward, willing my legs to move faster. If I could just make it to the main road, I'd feel safe. The streetlights were weak, flickering uncertainly. I could barely see where I was going, but I didn't want to stop. I could still hear the boy's voice, teasing and light, wrapping around my thoughts. "You can't escape the game." Suddenly, a shadow darted across my path. I skidded to a halt, breathless. A stray cat, its eyes glimmering like tiny stars, paused to stare at me, then darted away into the dark. I felt a rush of relief until I noticed the unnatural stillness that followed. The wind had died down, and with it, the laughter faded, but that only deepened the unease in my gut. I forced myself to continue moving, but a chill crept up my spine. I imagined the boy standing behind me, watching and waiting, just out of sight. Did he really think I would play? Each step felt heavier, the weight of the key in my pocket making me feel even more trapped. As I neared an intersection, I spotted an old convenience store. The windows were broken, and the door hung crooked on its hinges. It didn't look like it would offer me any sanctuary, but I was out of options. I dashed over, heart racing. Inside was dark, and the scent of mildew filled the air. My eyes adjusted slowly to the dimness, revealing empty shelves and broken displays. I took a tentative step forward, ready to find a place to hide. Surely, the boy wouldn't find me here. Then I heard a soft tapping sound, echoing from the back of the building. My pulse quickened. I couldn't be sure what was making the noise, but it was rhythmic and insistent, like a heartbeat echoing in the silence. My instinct screamed at me to leave, but the curiosity held me in place. I crept toward the sound, inching through the darkness. The tapping grew louder. I had to know what it was, but a part of me feared what I might find. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist around me, cocooning me in another layer of anxiety. As I reached the back of the store, I discovered a door slightly ajar. The tapping was louder now, echoing like scratching fingernails against wood. I hesitated, heart hammering. "Hello?" I called, voice shaky. No response. Inching the door open just enough to glimpse inside, I froze. There, lit by a flickering bulb, was a figure hunched over, tapping on a wall, drumming fingers against cracks in the plaster. Its hair hung down, veiling its face, but I could sense its focus, as if I was nothing more than a ghost drifting in the corner. Then it stopped. Everything went still. I held my breath, too terrified to move. "Lily?" It called, the voice strong yet hollow, like a whisper carried by the wind. "Is that you?" I stumbled backward, gasping. I turned to flee, but the floor creaked underfoot, betraying my presence. The figure shot up, and as it turned, I caught a glimpse of its face. My heart sank. It was someone I recognized, but the mouth twisted into a grin that made my blood run cold. "Come play with us," it beckoned, arms outstretched, its eyes wide with unsettling glee. I bolted. Clutching the key tightly, I raced back into the night, not knowing what else awaited me. But the laughter was closer now, mingling with the rhythm of my footsteps. Whatever the game was, it was only the beginning, and I was not the one calling the shots anymore. I bolted through the darkened streets, adrenaline flooding my veins. Each labored breath mixed with the rush of laughter that floated behind me like a sinister echo. The shadows poured out of the corners of every building, taunting me, whispering the names of children that had long vanished. No matter how fast I ran, that laughter drilled into my mind, urging me to pause, to play. Then I spotted it, a flickering lamppost on the corner, providing a weak sense of hope. I pressed on, skidding to a stop beneath its dim light. Around me, the world was unnaturally quiet, the laughter looming just beyond reach. I glanced around, my heart racing, scanning for any sign of the boy in the yellow dress or the other shadowy figures that seemed intent on dragging me back into their twisted game. I didn't know how long I stood there, panting, but those echoes became a cacophony. "You can't hide forever, Lily," they chimed. "Come play." Just then, the air shifted, prickling against my skin. The darkness shifted around me, and the figure of the cloaked adult emerged, slowly materializing from the shadows. Its shadow seemed to stretch and follow it closely, as if trying to embrace it. I pressed my back against the wall of the convenience store, heart pounding wildly. I wasn't out of options yet. There had to be a way to break free. As the figure inched closer, its crooked smile widened, showing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. "You shouldn't have wandered into our game," it said, voice a silky whisper filled with malice. "Now you must pay the price." Without hesitation, I shoved myself from the wall and ran down the street. My instincts guided me, pushing me beyond panic. I needed to find that main road. I needed to reach the safety of the larger world beyond this haunted town. Each step was a fight against the darkness that seemed to curl around my ankles, eager to pull me down. Rounding a corner, I found myself back at the house where it all began. How? Panic ignited within me again. This place was part of the unspeakable horror that haunted my thoughts. But what other choice did I have? I needed to confront whatever had tethered me to this town. With trembling hands, I pushed the creaking front door open and stepped inside. The chill of the air met me like an old friend, echoing my unease. "Get behind me!" I heartily shouted into the enveloping silence, even as my throat tightened. The laughter erupted once more, high-pitched and mocking. "No one can hear you, Lily." But this time, something shifted inside me, a flicker of determination. Resolutely, I made my way to the living room and scanned the peeling walls, searching for the source of the laughter. In the corner, the dusty bookshelf loomed. I recalled the diary I'd seen the first time I was here, the one that chronicled the lives of children and their encounters with whatever lived in this house. I needed to find it again. As I rummaged through the musty pages of the diary, the laughter crescendoed, transforming into an eerie chant that echoed through the rooms. "Time to play with us," they sang. I flipped through the diary faster, desperately seeking clues or something, anything that could help me understand what I was up against. I found an entry that caught my eye, describing a hidden door that led to the place of lost games. It didn't specify anything tangible, but my heart surged with hope. If there was a way to end this, I had to find it. Suddenly, the floorboards creaked ominously. I whipped around, feeling the weight of their gaze pressing down on me. The doorway I had entered through now loomed like a threshold to hell itself, shadows ebbing and flowing like a tide trying to claim its territory. Forcing myself to focus, I retraced my steps to the hallway and threw open the door at the end, a door I hadn't dared touch before. Stepping inside, I was engulfed by silence. The small room was empty, save for a single mirror hung on the wall. At first glance, it appeared nothing was there. But then I saw them flashes of children's faces, some laughing, some crying, all trapped within the reflection. Before fear could paralyze me, I tore my eyes away and glanced around the room. I felt something shift in the corner of my mind, an echo of familiarity with the voices. Though disjointed and melancholic, they seemed to call to me with urgency. Then I felt it, a tugging sensation, pulling me toward the mirror. Against my better judgment, I approached and reached out, fingertips brushing against the glass. It rippled like water, and suddenly, the faces merged, swirling together. Before I could react, a cool gust rushed from the mirror, and I was thrown backward onto the floor. I tried to stand, to flee, but knew the shadows were closing in, and whatever horror awaited was too powerful. "Will you join us?" a voice whispered, familiar yet daunting, drifting from the mirror. Terror seized my very core, but I stood my ground. "I refuse to let you take me," I screamed, terror igniting my spirit. "I will not play your game." The mirror cracked, a spiderweb of fractures spreading. The laughter faltered. Creativity infused me. I grabbed the rusted key from my pocket and thrust it toward the glass. I unlock freedom. With that proclamation, the mirror shattered. Light flooded the room fiercely, breaking through the shadows wrapping around me. The laughter turned into shrieks as the darkness peeled away, releasing the grasp it had on my limbs. The room spun, and I felt a dizzying rush. I was no longer in the house. I was standing outside in the fresh air, sunlight washing over me like a cleansing wave. I stumbled to my knees, gasping for breath. But as I looked around, fear crept back in. The empty street appeared calm and still, but the shadows remained, wisps of lingering darkness curling at the corners. I pushed myself up, heart pounding, looking back at the house. I'd escaped, but I knew those whispers would linger, the children waiting for their next game. There was no definitive answer, no final victory. Looking ahead, I resolved to leave this town behind. Yet as I turned to escape, that chilling laughter echoed on the wind, reminding me that some games never truly end. Though I was free for now, a part of me understood how thin the veil between worlds could be. I felt uncertainty gnawing at me, where light may reveal shadows anew. And deep down, I knew I'd never really left.